Hey everyone, nice to see you in this new video. Okay, so the last video we talked about bootstrapping, how to bootstrap via the CLI, how to bootstrap via start.spring.io, and how to bootstrap from IntelliJ Ultimate. Cool. All right, so in this video, we'll be starting off from where we stopped, right, to explore the pom.xml and then look at some extra details and what makes Spring Boot basically what makes Spring Boot basically kick off, or should I say start. Let's explore that as Spring Boot annotation and look at one nice feature we could actually add to our project. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, all right, so here we have the project. So what I've gone ahead to do is that I've created a brand new project. Nothing different, just the same way. This time around, I just called it EBS. EBS is short form for everything Spring Boot. That should be ESP, EBS. Oh, okay. I think I'm going to change this. I think I messed that up. That should be ESP, right? Everything Spring Boot. I just named it EBS, right? Without even thinking about it. Okay, so what we're going to do to get this actually saved, because I'm very much aware some people might want to follow, might want to look at the code snippet later on. So I'm going to push this to a Git repository. Okay, so I could just practically do this directly. So if you're familiar with your Git command, some people are more familiar with the interface IntelliJ. Basically, is, to be sincere, I've never used it once. It's very good. I have no issue against it. I'm just more comfortable with the CLI. All right, so let's proceed. So we do a git init. I have git installed already. So do a git init, right? So I do a git add, right? And I push that in. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and just add everything as my first commit. So I'll just do the git commit, then dash m my first commit. Okay, then I pushed it in. Now the next thing I need to do is to then point to a remote repository. So point to that remote repository, then I'll be able to get this up to GitHub. So I'll be using GitHub. I'll be pushing everything to GitHub, which is free, as you all know. So I'm gonna go directly to GitHub, right? So I'm gonna pull out the page right here, right now. Just a minute. Let me just pull up my GitHub page. So I'm getting into my GitHub page. I'm trying to create a new repository. Let's go to repositories. Yes, I know I'm not showing that. I'm just bringing that in. Okay. All right. All right. I hope somebody will not comment about my picture, right? This is a picture from 7 years ago. Okay. I hope nobody will comment on this. All right. So I can basically just create a new repository. I'm basically going to name it everything Spring Boot. Everything Spring Boot. All right, cool. Then in short will be ESB, right? I don't need to add that. So I'm gonna keep everything as a default. Description, I'll basically just say, should I say exploring Spring Boot? Okay. All right. So everything is fine as it is. I'll just create a repository. So the repository is created. I've gone ahead and created virtual all this. I just need this alone. I basically use SSH. I'm sure you're familiar with SSH. That even reminds me, I noticed some people are more comfortable using HTTPS. I basically advise you switch to SSH. It's just more cool, right? The other works. I just love cool stuffs. All right, so I'm gonna bring this out. Okay, so let's go. So this is what I need. I'm gonna paste this in here. Then I've actually added remote. So let's push. So I'll do the git push -u origin main, right? So what that means is I'm basically just doing git push --set upstream, right, origin main, and that pushes to that repository. So if I do a refresh, you see everything has been pushed. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create an issue in this place. So an issue, the cool thing about issues, so when I'm about to commit, I can from the CLI basically just attach this and that. We'll close it directly. So I would say exploring Spring Boot annotation at Spring Boot annotation at Spring Boot, a Spring Boot application, right? I think that's application, right? I don't know what I'm confused about. So if we check, so I'm talking about this a Spring Boot application. Yeah, a Spring Boot application. And one more thing, I will also explore component scanning. I'm gonna deep dive a little bit into this component scanning. All right, so I'm gonna do at component scanning. All right, so we've created an issue. So when we're about to commit, we'll basically walk through this. All right, cool. Yeah, so now here we are. So can we quickly just explore? Let's just explore the pom.xml. Is there anything unique in here? No, right? So let's just walk through. So this defines the parent you're actually connected to. So which is the same thing as if I bring up start.spring.io, start.spring.io, that is basically coming up, which is the same thing as this, the Spring Boot parent. So the parent is 4.0.6. Oh, that's even cool. I never knew 4.0.6 was out, right? That's cool. I think it probably came out yesterday because I checked yesterday, the day before it was still 4.0.5. Okay, that's pretty cool, right? You should also understand for when you have releases in this format, is always something like, right? Something like, so I'm just gonna create this. Always something like major, minor, major to minor, the patch. So what this is saying is if you're on 4.0.0, 4.0.1, 4.0.2, 3, 4.5, everything, nothing should basically break. So that is why the patch version, nothing is changing, right? So rather, patch version is changing. So meaning what we've added, the new increment or the things we fixed should not break what is existing. So if you have 4.0.1, 4.0.2, 4.0.3, and all the way to 6, nothing should break. However, once the minor changes, right, you're starting to have maybe 4.1.0, 4.1.2, yeah, you need to basically read the release notes. I would also advise you read it for this part and see what has changed. Now, it seems this is a lot, right? But this is what makes you a very good software engineer, because when you're using a Spring Boot version, you need to know exactly the changes that were made, right? You could be on 4.0.5, but trying to code and you experience the bug. Probably before you finish building the application, the Spring guys have already noticed it and they fixed it, right? You could just quickly read the release notes and just, just passively visit. Oh, they fixed this issue, this bug. Just go ahead and just upgrade, and that should solve things. So the question is, how do I see the release version? Very easy. I'll just say I'll just say Spring Boot, right? 4.0.6. release notes. Yeah, just passing the release notes, and if you look closely you will see the release notes. So let's go to the very top. Okay, so as you can see, 4.0.6 was released yesterday. All right, look at some of the issue that was fixed. This is Gemini, I guess. Just got to show you all this. Let's scroll down a bit if you can find it. All right, so you can see Spring Boot 4.0.6 available now. So when you open this up, right, there's always a GitHub link. Look at, these are the things the release include, all this. So when you open this up, right, in the new tab, you can see everything that has changed, the bug fixes, the documentation, the upgrades, things that have changed. You can see everything there, and you can then explore. Sometimes you don't need to know everything that is here. Just read through to see if there's something that catches your attention, right? They tell you, oh, Docker Compose support doesn't work with this. Oh, and you're basically using Apache ActiveMQ, right? You probably want to explore. You want to open it up and then see what the issue is, and then see probably the comments that were added and the likes. That's what makes you up to date to know exactly what is changing. All right, that being said, okay, so we've been able to actually look at this part. So let's go down a little bit. This is the generic things you get. You have the generic things you get. You basically have this, the com, the z, which is group ID, the artifact ID, right? You could change these things, right? You could basically change it. So for this EB, this description, I could just say exploring Spring Boot, right? Exploring Spring Boot. Okay, so the licenses, if you have any license, probably it is organizational and the likes, but we really would not want to bother with this because it doesn't really affect anything, right? These are just set of metadata. Probably what I'm interested in is to place the developer in here. I'll just place the developer. Yes, so I'll add in the developer. Then within the developer, I'll see the things that are available. Oh, I like this. Email ID. Okay, so I'm gonna go to email. My email, you could basically find my email. You can send me emails and I'm gonna respond to you guys. My email is Ezekiel at gmail.com. All right. What other thing? What else can I see? ID. Okay, ID looks cool. Just say ID. And is there anything in ID? Let's see. I'll just say my ID is okay, Z. All right, so that practically cuts it. So let's move ahead. So you can see the properties tag. When we have a need for it, I'll explain more details. But right now, it only carries our JDK version, which is Java 26. Okay, like I mentioned to you earlier, we only use some few set of starters, and you could add more. What are starters? What are Spring Boot starters? Okay, so Spring Boot starters are basically, so there existed a case where before now, right? Before now, or should I say from the inception, rather, from the inception of Spring Boot, you have starters. You can just call them mini libraries, or should I say libraries or packages that have been separated, so you don't have to wire everything in. You only bring in what you need. A typical example, if you want to do anything web related, you choose web, right? So everything you need around web will come in. Before now, web, everything HTTP clients, the REST templates, and things you need to make external calls was found in web. However, based on Spring Boot 4.0, now they actually attempted to do or to make things more modular. Modular in the sense that it was found that okay, there be this contention in this, there is contention in the community that okay, Spring Boot takes so much time to come up. Right, what could be the reason? Now it was found out that for each starter, it brings in so many things that were really unneeded. So they split things more. They actually split things further so that you only bring in what you need. So now that I have web, if I need to do anything related to calling probably another service from another server, I would need the HTTP client. You see, Spring Boot integration for REST client and REST templates. Before you could just find it in the web, right? And if I were to explore this, let's go to Maven, let's explore this. You could see it was added. This is added separately. Now, if you were to just add this and you try to look for the REST templates, you would have some errors, right? You would have some errors up until you add this. I hope that is clear enough. Okay, now you don't need to know everything. You can always Google search if you're looking for something. Okay, which Spring Boot starter handle these parts. As you get to play around with it, the more you get more proficient with it. Okay, so this also handles Lombok. I'm a big fan of Lombok, though I don't use it everywhere. I use it more in some certain places. I use it in conjunction with records to remove some boilerplate code. Yeah, stuffs like that. Okay, all right, so let's go back to our code. Yeah, so we have this. I also have Lombok. You could say added the REST client, which is separate, and it comes to the test suite, right? Everything comes to the test suite, right? For the HTTP, for the client, REST client, it comes to the test suite. For the web MVC, the web MVC was called web before Spring Boot 4.0.0. Now it's called MVC, so that it's separated out for you to know that hey, it's things that have to do with the model view controller you find in this. Now, if you need to make external calls, please add this, right? So they had to just separate it, so it's now more modular, which I think is a very good improvement, right? So when you're packaging your Spring Boot application, before now it used to be quite heavy, right? Right now, with things being split up, by bringing a simple web application becomes more modular. All right, so there you have it. And if we go down, so you have some set of default that are given to you. The Spring Boot Maven plugin. This Maven plugin is quite important. If you were to explore these bits, if you go down here, plugins, look at the plugins, if you look at Spring Boot, right? There's a set of details that basically come in. So you could run some Maven commands to interact with your Spring Boot application directly, which is why you have this Spring Boot run. If you're starting it up directly, you are basically running Maven Spring Boot run. I'm going to explore that in a bit. So with this already set up, so I could basically just come to my CLI and do mbn spring-boot run, right? And I hit this. So what I expect is that this will basically come up, right? If this will come up, okay, The reason why this is failing is because my JVM, my current JDK version is not 26, even though this project is 26. How can I confirm? If you do Java hyphen version, you can see I'm still stuck on 25. However, I don't need to basically go and change my JVM. There is also another way which most people don't know about. All you just need to do is to come to this Maven side, this Maven angle. If you look at this button, right, look at it carefully, you can execute a goal directly. So I can click this and still run the same thing. Spring hyphen boot, then run. It says Spring boot run. So when I run this, it runs the same thing for me. So this time around, it picks the context of what I've actually set in this place and basically post it up, and it will be able to start. And you can see this has started successfully. Now, how did it know the Spring Boot version to pick? Very easy. Sorry, the JDK version to pick. Very easy. If you check in here, if I were to do a right click, scroll down to open module settings. If you open module settings, the project, you can see the project is using Corretto 26. I have it installed, but it's not my default, right? If you go to modules, modules also is set to language 26. These are the things you need to ensure, right? If you go to SDK, SDK should be set to 26 also. If you have this in place, if you run any goal here, it will pick those details you just set. That is how to differentiate. If you can't run from a CLI because you have other projects that are using several JDK versions, you just need to go to the goal over here, and that gets things running. All right, that's pretty cool. So we've been able to explore this in a bit of detail, right? So let's quickly, I don't intend to make the video very long, right? I'm targeting a particular time. So let's just quickly explore the Spring Boot application, right? This is what makes the Spring Boot basically tick. Now, keep this in mind. I would like you guys to keep this in mind, right? Anytime you see an annotation in Spring Boot, it is not just there as a marker or a label. It is containing several other things. A typical interview question. So let's do a control click on this, control click or command click if you're on Mac. Now it brings it up. A typical question I could ask you, right? Because I basically conduct interviews. So the typical example I could ask you is, okay, what are the components? What makes a Spring Boot application? What are the components that are embedded within a Spring Boot application? The truth is, if you've never explored this, you would not know. You should know that it contains your Spring Boot configuration, it contains the enable auto configuration, and it actually contains the component scan. Now, let's pick this one by one. What is target? What is target? Target basically tells you that it is only allowed on a class. Now, if you look at this, if you place your cursor here and do a command P or control, all right. Oh, I think I basically use a shortcut, which is the same thing as pressing Control P. So it actually paused me for a while, right? So I was basically mentioning when you do a Control P here, it tells you the details, right? If you place it in here, right, and press a Control P, it shows you the type. And if we open this up, right, you open target up, you will notice that target is basically an array. It's an array. So what does it tell you? It tells you that you could have multiple element types. And if you look at element type, if it's of type, it can be used on a class. If it's of field, it can be used on a field. If it's of method, it can be used on a method. If it's a parameter, it can be used on a parameter. So sometimes when you check an annotation and you discover, right, that the target type can be found, the target type contains type, method, field, it means it can be used in these places. That is why you shouldn't be surprised when you see that some annotations can basically be used. A typical case that you could find this is, let's explore this guy that has been said, you guys shouldn't use it, right? You should not use it because it's not advisable, right? It's not advisable, and there are several reasons why auto-wired is not advisable. But let's just explore auto-wired. If you look at auto-wired, can you see the target type contains constructor, meaning it can be used on a constructor. Which is why, those of you that use on the constructor, this is why it is possible. Because the target type is constructor. Element method, that is why you can basically also use it on a method. You can also use it on a field, which is the famous one people use. They'll have some service, maybe a service called my service, and they'll place that at AutoWired. The reason why it's available on this field is because of the element type element type field. I hope that basically makes sense to you guys at the moment. All right, so let's quickly proceed. All right, so that we have at the moment. So we've been able to actually explore. I've been able to show you guys some cool stuffs, right? This video is getting very long. I want you guys to be able to come back, to be able to pause at some very reasonable point. 20 minutes is quite long. Coming back, then let's explore, or let's continue in the next video.